A very good morning to all my dear students. I hope you all are doing well and preparing well for the upcoming exams. This is Anuradha Tripathi, your science teacher before you, and I am going to explain you the chapter 6 of your textbook, that is conservation of biodiversity. Heading towards the topics that we are going to cover in this chapter. The very first topic will be the introduction, that is what are resources, what are natural resources, how many types of resources are there, what is conservation. Next, we'll be learning about biodiversity. What do we mean by biodiversity? Why it needs to be conserved? What are the causes of loss of biodiversity? Next, we'll be learning about the very important topic, that is deforestation. What are the causes of deforestation? What are the consequences of deforestation? Next, we will learn about recycling of paper and reforestation. After that, we'll be learning about flora and fauna. Next, we'll be learning about several kinds of species such as endemic, extinct, and endangered species. After that, we will be learning about the in situ biodiversity conservation, that is protected areas, which includes biosphere reserves, national parks, and wildlife sanctuaries. After that, we will learn a very important project, that is the Project Tiger, where we will learn about the conservation of the tigers. So let's start from the very first topic, that is introduction. In the introduction part, basically we are going to learn about what are natural resources, what is conservation. So talking about what are natural resources. So the materials or the substances which are found in the nature or the earth, which are actually used by the human beings, are known as natural resources. The earth provides us certain natural resources which includes sunlight, air, water, plants, animals, soil, minerals, metals, and fossil fuels. When we talk about these natural resources, they either come from the earth's surface or the atmosphere or under the oceans or from underground. These natural resources can be categorized into two categories: living natural resources, and the second one is non-living natural resources. When we talk about these living natural resources, they include plants, animals, and microorganisms which are available on the earth's surface and have life in them. Next, when we talk about the non-living natural resources, it includes air, water, rocks, soil, fossil fuels, etc., as they does not have life in them and they do not perform the life processes. So, as we have started with the very first part, that is conservation. What is actually meant by conservation? So, when we talk about conservation, conservation is basically the wise and judicious use of natural resources. Therefore, conservation includes or ensures that the resources are available for the future generations as well. The main aim of conservation is the avoidation of overusage and wastage of the resources. When we talk about conservation, it broadly aims at two aspects. The first one is to ensure a continuous availability of the useful plants, animals, and materials for the future generations. And the second aim of the conservation is to preserve the quality of our environment. Now, in this chapter, we will be learning about the biodiversity conservation. Before heading towards the conservation of biodiversity, let us know what do we mean by biodiversity. So, the term biodiversity was first introduced by Walter G. Rosen in 1986. The term biological diversity or biodiversity refers to the variety of living organisms existing on the earth. As we know that the biodiversity is originated from the Greek word, that is bios, which means life, and the Latin word Diversities, which means varieties or differences. So the whole word biodiversity or the biological diversity basically refers to the variety of the living organisms or the different kinds of living organisms which are present or existing on the earth's surface. This biodiversity includes all kinds of life or all forms of life such as plants, animals and microorganisms. This biodiversity, it is not uniformly distributed across the globe. Some areas have greater biodiversity while some have less biodiversity. Now forests are the areas where the diversity is maximum or where the more diversity or biodiversity is found. Now, talking about the importance of biodiversity. Biodiversity is helpful to us in many ways. We will be talking about each ways in detail. First of all, as we know that all the plants and animals are important to us as they are the sources of food for the human beings. So as they play a very vital role in our life. So all these plants, animals, human beings as well as microorganisms are dependent on each other for their survival. Therefore, it is very important to ensure that the ecological balance, that is a stable environment where a number of different life forms, each affecting the other life, is balanced, such as in the forest, desert, soil, etc. Now, talking about the importance of the biodiversity. The very first importance of biodiversity is it helps to regulate the climate, rainfall and wind. The second importance is it purifies the air and water. The third importance of biodiversity it helps in the cycling of the nutrients as it recycles them. The fourth importance of the biodiversity is it helps to preserve the soil fertility. And the very fifth or the last but not the least importance of biodiversity is it forms food chains and food webs. Thereby it maintains balance in ensuring the availability of the food to all the life forms such as plants, animals, human beings as well as microorganisms. Now, talking about the biodiversity conservation. As we have seen that how biodiversity is important to us, therefore it is very important to conserve or to save the biodiversity. Otherwise, there will be no life. So, it is very important to conserve the biodiversity. Now, when we talk about the biodiversity conservation, it can be done in two ways. The first is in situ biodiversity conservation and the second one is ex situ biodiversity conservation. In this chapter, we are going to learn about the in situ biodiversity conservation, which includes the protected areas such as national parks, wildlife sanctuaries and biosphere reserves. Here in this chapter, we are not going to learn about the ex situ biodiversity conservation. So, now talking about the losses of biodiversity. Day by day, there is a huge loss in the biodiversity due to the certain reason, and these reasons becomes the causes of the loss of biodiversity. Now talking about these causes in detail. The very first cause of biodiversity loss is the climate change, as due to the heating of the earth's surface, it is affecting the biodiversity as it endangers all the species which are adapted to the cold due to the latitude such as polar species and the altitude such as the mountain species. As when they feel extreme hot, their category comes into the endangered category and hence their life is to a extinct level. Second one is over exploitation of the resources. As we know that there are several activities which are connected with capturing, harvesting, and due to its over exploitation, due to the resources as they are used in a excessive manner, which is actually causing the cause of biodiversity. After that, we have certain other reasons which are a threat for the biodiversity or a threaten the existence of the plants or animals on the surface of the earth, such as climate change. The second one is habitat loss and degradation. The third one is pollution of air, water, and soil. The fourth one is invasive species. The fifth one is over exploitation, as we have already discussed. And the sixth one is other potential threats. Now, as we know that there is a large increase in human population leading to their demands also. Thereby, this leads to a large scale cutting of trees, which is known as deforestation. Also, industrialization and urbanization has increased to a large level, which has actually led to the land clearance for erecting industries, homes, and roads to fulfill the needs of the increasing population. Also, day by day, as the increase in the population of animals is also seen, which are because of which overgrazing is done and which leads to the loss of a biodiversity. Also, the excessive discharge of solid, liquid, and gaseous waste from the houses, fields, industries has caused the pollution, thereby increasing the loss of biodiversity. Certain other reasons, such as habitat destruction due to the deforestation, industrialization, construction of dams, and the natural resources such as earthquakes, floods, droughts, and cyclones, a large number of habitats of the living organisms have been destroyed. This also has resulted to the loss of biodiversity. Also, hunting and killing of animals for their meat, for their skin, and other useful body parts has also led to the large reduction in their numbers, leading to the loss of biodiversity. Now, talking about the very next topic, that is deforestation. What is meant by deforestation? As already deforestation we have discussed into the category of causes of loss of biodiversity. Deforestation is basically the removal of the forest or the stand of trees where the land is thereafter converted to a non-forest use, as you all can see in the figure. Now, examples of the deforestation includes conversion of the forest land to farms, ranches, or urban use. This is basically because of the increase in the population. Now, talking about the causes of the deforestation. As we know that the forests are an important natural resource. Also, they are very much essential for the well-being and the survival of the mankind. However, due to various human needs, the forests are under the great threat of being cut. Therefore, this removal of the trees, as we have discussed, are known as deforestation. Now, various causes of deforestation are there, like clearing land to build the house or construction of houses and industries. As the population will increase, so obviously we will need houses to live, we will need some place to work in, so industries and houses needs to be constructed. That's why the lands are being cleared or the deforestation is being occurred. Then felling the trees for wood, as the population will increase, eventually the increase in the demand of wood will also increase, therefore it will thereby increase the deforestation. Next, clearing land for the agricultural purpose. As the population will increase, so large number of people have to be fed with the food, therefore we have to grow the crop in a larger number, we have to do the production in the larger number, hence causing the deforestation. Then forest fire. Sometimes the deforestation also occurs due to natural reasons such as forest fires, earthquakes, severe droughts, and floods. So all these are the causes of the deforestation. Once again, you can just go through the topic, like construction of houses and industries. The second one is felling trees for wood or using the wood as fuel. The third one is agriculture. The fourth one is natural deforestation due to forest fire, earthquakes, severe droughts and floods, and other land uses. Now, what are the consequences of deforestation? Consequences basically stands for the adverse effect. As we know that the deforestation has an adverse effect on the biodiversity and it needs to be checked immediately. So, let us talk about the adverse effect which is being happening to our environment due to the deforestation or as the effect of the deforestation. The first one is global warming, the second one is pollution, the third one is drought, the fourth one is desertification, the fifth one is animal and plant life which are being affected, the next one is shortage of food, and the last one but not the least is the flooding of rivers. As we already know, the plants and the animals both depend on each other. A large number of species of birds and other animals also lives in the forest. That is known as their habitat. They depend upon each other for food and other things. Now this destruction of forest has actually affected the food chain. Also it has destroyed the habitats of many living organisms. Animals like lions and tigers, you must have seen they have become reduced in the number because the forest in which they were living they have actually been destroyed. So remember, this is only not the reason for the reduction in the number of animals. Also there is other reason, that is hunting. Also this illegal hunting of the animals is known as poaching. Now, talking about the consequences of deforestation in detail. So the very first consequence, as you can see in the figure, is global warming. Now what is global warming and what is the result, how it has been consequated? The level of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases on account of the deforestation. As we know that the plants need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, but when we will cut the plants, so less number of trees will be there, and less number of trees, that means less requirement of carbon dioxide. So the level of the carbon dioxide will eventually grow up in the environment, causing the global warming. Next is the drought. As you know that the deforestation leads to the increase in temperature, and also it increases the pollution level on the earth, which disturbs the water cycles and reduces the rainfall. As the outcome of this reduce in the rainfall, what happens? Drought occurs. The next one is soil erosion, where the fertile land is converted into the desert as a result of desertification. So let us talk about the desertification. As we know that the deforestation results in the soil erosion. Also we have learned in class 7 that trees prevent soil erosion. So as the roots of the trees bind the soil particles together, preventing them from blowing away by wind or water. When soil erosion occurs, it removes the top layer of the soil, which contains the fertile humus. Now this removal of the top layer makes the soil less fertile, and the lower layers contains less humus, so they are not very useful as the top layer already has been removed. Thereby it converts this fertile land into the desert, and this conversion of the fertile land into the desert is known as desertification. So as a consequence of deforestation, desertification is also occurring nowadays. Then flooding of rivers. As a result of deforestation, the water level also gets lowered. We know that. Now the capacity of the soil to hold water is reduced. This movement of the water from the soil surface into the ground slows down in the absence of the trees, as the water is not able to seep into the soil. Thereby, as a result, in rainy season, the water just flows over the soil, bringing flood. So flood is also one of the consequences of the deforestation. These all mentioned consequences of deforestation has affected the population of the organisms found in the particular area, and also the types of crops which are grown in that particular area. as we can see in the figure, how the plant and animal life is being affected. Now, talking about, as we have learned all these consequences, so we will head towards the next topic, that is what can we do to reduce the deforestation. So the very first method is recycling of paper. As we know that the paper is made from the pulp of trees. Also, we can imagine how many lakhs of trees are being cut every day to make the paper. As a student also, you are using a lot of paper, so it's better we can just recycle the paper, or we can simply reduce the usage of the paper by writing on the either sides of the paper, by avoiding their wastage, and third one is by recycling them. As we know that the paper can be recycled 5 to 7 times for use. This recycling will help to save the energy. Also, it will save the water which is needed to manufacture the paper. Moreover, also it will use of harmful chemicals also will be reduced, which are actually done for the making of paper. So this is quite a helpful method of reducing the deforestation. We should always recycle. We should try to recycle the things like papers, bags, furniture, so that the less cutting of trees can take place and we can use the products wisely. The second one is reforestation. Now, what is meant by reforestation? Planting of the new trees where the forest has been destroyed. Wherever the forest has been destroyed, there, when we plant some new trees, this plantation of new trees, this process is known as reforestation. Now, if the destroyed forest area is left undisturbed, natural reforestation takes place. You must have seen at some places when after a long time, when you have not seen any plant over there, after a long time it eventually grows by itself, even though if you are not planting any tree. So this is the natural reforestation. In the natural reforestation, there is no role of human beings. Now, in India, we have following acts which deals with the conservation of the forest. The first one is Forest Conservation Act 1980 and the second one is Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The basic two aims of these acts are, the first one is to preserve and conserve the forest, and the second one is to meet the basic needs of the people which are living in or near that particular forest area. Also, the government is making many efforts to save the forest. As you know that the deforestation now has become illegal. Therefore, it is our duty to save the government, to help the government to save the forest wealth, as we human beings only can stop this. Now, coming to the next topic, that is flora and fauna. The term flora is basically used to indicate the different plants which are growing in a particular area, while the term fauna is used to indicate the different animals which are found in a particular area. As we can see several examples in the figure. Now, one more term is there, wildlife. The term wildlife is used to describe the organisms that includes both plants and animals which are living in their natural habitat. Remember this, natural habitat. Now, some examples of flora are like mango, jamun, sunflower, pea, and some examples of fauna are cow, elephant, dog, crow, and bull. I hope you all can differentiate between the flora and fauna. Flora is basically used to indicate the plants, and fauna is basically used to indicate the animals. Next is biosphere. As we know that the area near the surface of the earth can be divided into four interconnected spheres: the lithosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and the atmosphere. So basically biosphere is the area of the surface near the earth which is composed of all living organisms. So it is that part of the earth which supports or where all the living organisms exist. It includes lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere, as all the three components, that is land, water and air, all are found on the surface of the biosphere, and it makes the life possible. Next is ecosystem. What is meant by ecosystem? Basically, the term ecosystem includes all the living organisms such as plants, animals, and microorganisms, along with the non living components such as the climate, soil, carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, etc. of that area. So, an ecosystem basically consists of all the plants, animals, microorganisms which are living in the area along with the non living components. So, it is basically the component composition of the living as well as non living components. Now, on this ecosystem, as we have several species, several kind of species based on their numbers. The first one is endemic species, the second one is extinct species, and the third one is endangered species. Now, what is meant by the endemic species? So, species of the plants and animals which are found exclusively in a particular geographical area. That means they are specific in a particular area and they are found nowhere else. And apart from that particular area, we cannot find them anywhere else. They are termed as endemic species. For example, giant panda is an endemic animal which is found in the mountains of southeast China. Then sal and wild mango are the endemic flora of Pachmarai. Then bison, which is the Indian giant squirrel, and flying squirrel are the endemic fauna of this area. Also in India we have Asiatic lion, in which are found in the Gir National Park, Gujarat. Then Nilgiri tahar in the Nilgiri Hills, and lion-tailed macaw in southwest India are some examples of the endemic species. Now, what are the factors which have led to the formation of these kinds of species? The first one is destruction of habitats. The second one is increasing population of the species and the introduction of new species which compete with the endemic species. And the third one is the climatic changes, which is very usual. Now, the second category of species are extinct species. Some of the species of plants and animals are there which have been lost forever. So, such kind of species which have been lost forever and they are not going to come back are known as extinct species. You would have heard of the dinosaurs, the animals which were actually first earlier dominating on the surface of the earth. They have become extinct as they could not adapt to the climatic changes. So now they are not present anywhere on the surface of the earth. Then the bird dodo also has been become extinct. Then we have several examples, as you can see in the figure: Asiatic cheetah, pink head duck, etc. These have been lost forever. Hence they are coming under the category of extinct species. Also some plants are there like Nilgiri holly and cry pansy. They also have become extinct. Then the third category of species are the endangered species. Now, some of the species are there which are at the high risk of becoming extinct. That means if they are not conserved, they will become extinct eventually as their number is day by day decreasing. So such species falls under the category of endangered species, and such kind of species are not likely to survive if the casual factors continue to operate. If the factors like whatever they are going on, if they continue to operate, so they are not, eventually they will be becoming extinct one day. So examples of extinct species we have seen. Now examples of endangered species are Indian rhinoceros, Asiatic lions, crocodiles and blue whales. All these are the examples of the endangered species. If they are not taken care of, they will definitely extinct from our environment. Therefore, we need to take proper care. Next comes the Red Data Book. What is actually Red Data Book? Red Data Book is basically the source which gives a record of all the endangered animals and the plants. It is published by the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources (IUCN), which is now known as the World Conservation Union, that is WCU. Talking about the main aim of IUCN is to focus the attention of conservationists towards the species which are endangered and at the high risk of extinction. So we can find all the records of the endangered plants and animals in the Red Data Book. And basically we will be learning what are the parameters they are going to work on so that these endangered species does not become extinct. Now, talking about the conservation of forest and wildlife, as we have seen, we have about the biodiversity conservation, we will be learning about the in situ conservation, which includes the protected areas. Now, under this protected areas, we have three categories. The first one is biosphere reserve, the second one is national park, and the third one is wildlife sanctuaries. When we talk about these protected areas, it is basically aimed at protecting the flora and fauna and their habitats under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. According to the World Conservation Union, protected areas are basically the areas which are dedicated for the production and the maintenance of the biodiversity along with the natural and the cultural resources. As we have already talked about, these protected areas includes the national park, wildlife sanctuaries and the biosphere reserve. So let's talk about the very first topic, that is biosphere reserves. These biosphere reserves are basically the large reservoirs which are multi-purpose protected areas for the conservation of the wildlife, plant and the animal resources. People are also an important component of these kind of resources or the reserves. These biosphere reserves are basically developed to conserve the biodiversity and to maintain the ecological balance. Secondly, they maintain the culture of the particular area. Third, it permits the tribals and other people in the area to coexist. When we talk about this biosphere reserves, it is a large area which may or may not contain some national parks, some sanctuaries in it. That means among all the three protected areas, biosphere reserves are the largest. For example, Panchmarahi Biosphere Reserve, it consists of one national park named Satpura National Park, and it has two wildlife sanctuaries in it, that is Bori Wildlife Sanctuary and Pachmari Wildlife Sanctuary. Also we have one more example, that is Nilgiri Biosphere Reserves, which has two national parks in it, that is Bandipur National Park and Nagarhole National Park. The second protected area is national parks. Now what are national parks? The national park is an area which is strictly reserved for the protection of the wildlife. The national park preserves flora, fauna, that is the plant as well as the animals, landscape or you can say the natural environment and the historic objects of the area. Now activities like grazing, hunting, forestry, cultivation are banned over these areas. The government is the owner over here. That means it is not owned by any private ownership. It is basically used for conservation purpose. Now examples of some national parks in India are the Jim Corbett National Park, which is situated in Uttarakhand, then Kanha National Park, which is located in Madhya Pradesh, then several examples of national parks are there. Now talking about the third protected areas, that is the wildlife sanctuary. So the wildlife sanctuaries are basically the areas which are reserved for the protection of animals only. That means you can see the basic difference between the national park and the wildlife sanctuary. The national park was reserved for the protection of flora and fauna as well, but this is not the case with the wildlife sanctuary. The wildlife is basically meant for the animals protection only. Here the killing and capturing of animals is strictly prohibited. That means you cannot do any kind of poaching, you cannot capture any kind of animals. This is strictly prohibited as it aims at conservation of wildlife or the animals only. Now in this sanctuary only two or some activities are allowed up to some extent, like harvesting of timber is allowed and the collection of some minor forest products are allowed. Now animals are also protected in the zoos. The protection in the zoos is an adequate or comparable to the protection that is given in the sanctuaries. As the zoos, you know that the animals are kept for the public exhibition. They live in the atmosphere that is made artificial, that is not their natural habitat, and they are given food at a specific time. Like they cannot have the food on their wish, they are having the food at the specific time interval. While in the sanctuaries, the animal live in the natural habitat and they obtain the fruit from their habitat on their own whenever they want. So this is basically the difference between the national park and the wildlife sanctuary. Also we have seen the difference between the zoo and the sanctuary. Now talking about the last topic of this chapter, that is Project Tiger. This Project Tiger was launched by the Indian government in 1973 and it was aimed at protecting the tigers in the country. As we have seen, there is a decrease sharply over the years. Like in 1948, the population of tiger was about 20,000. Then in 1989, we have seen a gradual decrease. It has become to 4,000. And in 2000, in a recent survey, we have seen it was 1,233. So realizing this decline, the Project Tiger was initiated by the government of India. At present, we have basically 47 tiger reserves in 18 Indian states. And according to the latest census report, it has been seen that the current tiger population is estimated about 1706. At least we have got some increase in the population. Therefore this Project Tiger is a very important project and it is aiming at the conservation of the tiger. This Corbett National Park is the first national park in India to be covered under the Project Tiger. So we have learned what is the biodiversity, what is the importance of biodiversity, then why should we conserve it, what are the basic parameters or aspects of the biodiversity conservation. I hope you all have understood this chapter. Do revise it wisely. Thank you so much, class.